Here's a quick crash course on how to map out your business as a solo founder. My name is Zan. I'm a product leader turned solo founder. My focus is on helping solo founders succeed. I like to use a 4-step process to map out any business or product idea, starting with customer segment, then problem and solution, then competition, and then business model. So let's walk through a quick example using Airbnb. The first question to ask yourself under customer segment is, who is your ideal customer? We do this across 3 time horizons: today, next, and future. The reason for this is a common mistake with customer segment is people always say, well, everyone is my customer. While that's technically true, you really in the beginning want to focus very, very specifically on a narrow niche whose problem you can solve. So in our Airbnb example, we're focusing not just on all travelers, but travelers at conferences who can't afford lodging. Anybody else gets bucketed into next or future. So that way you don't feel like, hey, it's too narrow, but you can still focus in the beginning on one segment. For the Airbnb example, we're also including here, it's because it's a two-sided market, hosts who have extra room or extra space, or people who have extra space in their apartments and want to make some extra money. Next, we move to problem and solution. So this customer segment that we just identified in the previous step, what is the problem or need that they have? So my customer has a need to, in our case, the travelers to conferences have a need to find lower cost housing options. And as I said, the hosts want to make extra money. Now, why is this hard today? So this is hard today because, so then you think about this need that they have. Why is it hard to find low cost housing options? Well, it's because hotels, at least in the day before Airbnb existed, hotels were expensive and they also kind of lack the local touch. And for hosts, they couldn't make any extra money from their space because they can't really trust strangers. So then we get to our solution to the problem. The solution is a marketplace that safely connects travelers and hosts. And then you could put a couple of key features that map to the core needs of our customers and their pain points. So for example, with Airbnb, trust and identity verification, both of hosts and guests, was a key early value proposition. Now we come to competition. So who are our primary competitors? Now, the biggest mistake I see people make here is your competitors aren't just other companies in the space. It is your next best alternative. So in the case of Airbnb, their competitors could be hostels and hotels, but it could also be somebody crashing with a friend and not paying for lodging at all. So your competitors are basically the next best alternative that your customers would consider. And then you need to figure out, the next question is, why are we better than our competitors? And in Airbnb's case, perhaps they're cheaper than hotels and they're safer and more reliable than hostels, right? And then lastly, we look at the business model. So how will we acquire customers? So in this case, we're going to acquire our early adopter customers by, and again, this should be very specific, reaching out to conference and festival attendees or partnering with conferences and festivals. If you have a very specific early adopter customer, then your customer acquisition strategy becomes much more specific as well. It goes beyond the generic, oh, we're going to use social media, right? That's too general. You got to think very, very specifically about how you're going to get those specific people depending on where they hang out. And then the last thing is, how will we make money? Now, in Airbnb's case, they look at a % on every booking, right? But the key is, when you think about how you're going to make money, you figure out what is the core value, like what is the core need that you're addressing for your customer, and what is it worth to them? And when have you delivered on that need? So in Airbnb's case, the reason they're charging for every booking is that their measure of success is when they've successfully matched up a host with a traveler. And so that's why they can charge at that particular point in time. Once you've mapped this out, the last thing to do is to figure out the pieces where you're least confident. So what I like to do is actually start at the top left. And this is helpful if you're stuck and don't know what to do next with your business. I would just start at the top left and go top to bottom, left to right. So if you're not confident that this is the right customer segment, you don't really have much validation, then I would focus on this first before worrying about anything related to your product or your solution or any other thing. If you feel good about this, then start working your way down to the next piece, right? If you're confident about this customer segment, how confident are you that they care about lower cost housing options? And that's something they're actively looking for. Focus your research and your validation around this. If you're good with the first two, then focus on the next one, and on and on. So keep going down from left to right. And eventually, as you start to get more and more confident on each of the pieces, the final piece is the business model. So, getting the monetization right. That's why a lot of times companies will focus on the core customer segment, the problem and the solution and value prop long before they start thinking about monetization. Because if you get the left side right, then the right side becomes a lot easier. So last thing to do here is if you want to get this done quickly, take a screenshot of your screen right now and paste it into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to do this for your idea. I hope that was helpful. Follow along for more content for solo founders.